Hello, everyone, and welcome to BodyBags. I'll be your reviewer for tonight. I am Lonnie from Tats, and yeah, if you remember, this week is a random week. But if you remember, from my last random week, I reviewed the movie Munsters Go Home, and in that review, I suggested to Rob that maybe I could go ahead and review the next movie, The Munsters Revenge, and we went ahead and decided we're going to go ahead and go with that. So yeah. From 1981, the movie I'm reviewing tonight is The Munsters Revenge, which I just finished rewatching. And this one here, it's not too bad, but I gotta be honest, it kind of really is. It's kind of weak, It's definitely the weaker of the two Munster movies. Um, the story is pretty simple. Uh, you know, um, you know, I think I already said the movie came out in '81. Anyway, so yeah, the story is pretty simple. The Munsters, they all go to a wax museum to look at the figures and stuff. And yeah, you could definitely tell some time had passed, and unfortunately, they ended up yeah, Fred Gwynne black comes back to play Herman. Al Lewis comes back to play Grandpa, and Yvonne De Carlo comes back to play Lily. However, we kind of got into almost like a Griswold situation here. If you go watch the vacation movies, you ever notice like in each vacation movie, the Griswold kids, Audrey and Rusty, are always played by different actors. Well, it's kind of the same thing in this. We have a different Eddie, played by Casey Martel, who you might remember from E.T. The part, he was one of Elliot's friends. He had like the headset on with the baseball cap when E.T.'s making all the kids fly, and he's the one, tell me when it's over. He was that kid. And then we have Joe McDonnell playing Marilyn. So yeah. So they go to this wax museum and they're looking at all the figures and everything. And when turns out that the museum is getting ready to close, and well, while they're looking, they see figures of Dracula, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, and they think it's the images of them, and so they decide to take a picture with it and everything else, and then when they leave, then it turns out that actually the wax museum is a cover, and that all these wax dummies are actually robots, and the mastermind behind this whole thing is Sid Caesar. So, and that's the thing, if you like watching Sid Caesar do, quite a bit of his shtick, then you're gonna like this movie because he does quite a bit of it. So anyway, so the idea is they use these, robots to go out and, scare people and to, rob places, steal money, steal jewelry, things like this. Well, so, also to the Dracula and the Frankenstein mummy or robots, they do the same thing. And so, of course, because of that, the police and everybody, they mistake, Herman and Grandpa as, the robbers. And so they go and arrest them and, they put them in jail. And then they kind of turn into like the fugitive. They have to get out, they have to escape from jail. And then they have to go and try to uncover the whole, plot and do what they got to do to cover to clear their names. And, so in the meanwhile, to now they come to find out that also that Sid Caesar and this gang, of thugs, one of the thugs you'll actually remember. It took me a couple of minutes. I was like, that one guy looks familiar. Who the hell is he? And then I realized, oh, that was the guy who played the Freeling's the neighbor in Poltergeist. The one who's like, my kids want to watch Mr. Rogers. He's having the remote click off with Craig T. Nelson. It's like he plays one of the thugs in this. So anyway, they come to find out that there's actually going to be this big Halloween party at this at this museum, and they're going to bring in this mummy, and this there's going to be all kinds of expensive artifacts and jewelry and stuff like this. And it turns out, Grandpa and Herman, they find out that Sid Caesar's character, Dr. Diablo, he's going to he's going to use the robots to go in and steal all the jewels and everything else, so they can have all this money and everything. And Dr. Diablo is under this he's kind of under this delusion that he is the brother of this mummy and everything. And it's like the mummy stole his birthright. There was this necklace that's like a birthright to him, and so he figures, that it's his. He should have it back, and so he wants to go ahead and use the robots to steal this necklace and everything. So it's up to Herman and Grandpa, as well as Marilyn gets involved. She becomes very much like she very much wants to help Herman and Grandpa clear their names, and with the help of this detective Glenn, and this Glenn, of course, he's a guy who's he's got the hot pants for Maryland, so he wants to go and help them clear their names. And then also they add a character into this movie. They add Cousin Phantom of the Opera, which is, when you look at it, I gotta be honest, like, wow, the makeup in this movie does not hold up. I gotta be honest, that it's like looking at the mask on the Cousin Phantom of the Opera. It almost makes you want to take a picture and try to turn it into a meme. It's like, show that picture and say, when you ordered Phantom of the Opera off Wish, something like that. But so anyway, it's kind of now it's a race against time. They got to try to stop Sid Caesar and his gang from committing this robbery, and for Herman and Grandpa to clear their names. I would say, like, if you want to use it, okay, yeah, it is kind of a good gateway movie. Like, if you have children or you have people, you're looking for gateway movies into horror to get them into it. It's not that bad. It's okay for that, but it's not really the best, and it's definitely not really the best, in terms of, trying to introduce, newer generations to the Munsters. If you're gonna, my best suggestion, if you're gonna do that, do the show. Use just start them on the show. But if you want to use one of the movies to get them into it, I would definitely say, yeah, you'd probably be better off going with Munster Go Home, because, I mean, at least that one, except for Debbie Watson playing Marilyn, you have most of the original cast, and it kind of, I feel like that movie kind of gives you a little bit more, like, you're introducing this to, younger generations, or introducing new people to Munsters. This would kind of give them more of a clear idea of what they're in for, because, with Munsters Revenge, there's just like a little too much that's different about it. And so, like, if you show them that movie first, and then they start watching, the show, they start watching Munster Go Home, and they're well, wait a minute, that's not the same Eddie. Who's that girl playing Marilyn? What about this? What about that? And everything. So I would definitely say, yeah, if you want to introduce people to Munsters, definitely just start off with the TV show. Or if you're going to go with one of the movies, yeah, really, really go with Munster Go Home. That would be the better choice. The movie, it's not that bad, but at the same time, for one thing, honestly, the makeup and everything else really does not hold up. It does not look really good in color. This would definitely be one, it's like, hey, Rob, Glenn, Jason, everybody, it's like, we've talked about movies before you want to watch in black and white. Definitely Munsters Revenge would look a lot better if you watch in black and white, because at least it would somewhat resemble the show. I mean, my God, like, when you watch this, the makeup does not look good. I mean, Eddie, he looks like, his whole face looks like he's made out of wax. And Yvonne De Carlo is like, Yvonne De Carlo was even still beautiful back then, and it's like the makeup just doesn't work. And I mean, like, this show was back in the 60s, for crying out loud, and it's weird how this movie came out in 1981, and it seemed like the makeup done in the 60s was actually an improvement over this makeup from 1981, because if you look, I mean, you look at it, the same thing with, like, Al Lewis's grandpa. The makeup on him just does not look right. It really does not hold up well. And it does. It looks like, he looks like he's wearing, like, wax on his face. It almost looks like, he can't stand close to a fire or anything. It looks like he's going to start to melt. And Fred Gwynne, bless his heart. I mean, if you've ever watched any of the documentaries about the Munsters, or you've ever, watched documentaries about Fred Gwynne or any of that kind of stuff, I mean, playing Herman Munster, I mean, bless Fred Gwynne. I mean, it was an honor to watch him play Herman Munster, and he worked so hard at it, and he gave so many people so much joy, so much pleasure watching the Munsters. He just gave us so much, and he did such a great job at it. And he will be forever remembered. But the thing is like you got to remember when Fred Gwynne played Herman Munster, he suffered. You watch any documentary about the Munsters or Fred Gwynne, he suffered for this role. He really did. Um, you know, they talked about like the padding and everything that they had to keep putting him in, and the makeup and all this kind of stuff. He was in hell playing that role. The padding and everything. He was weighed down. He was constantly sweating. They tell stories about like he was drinking lemonade by the gallons and everything because trying to keep from dehydrating because the bodysuit and the makeup and everything that they put him in, it was taking such a toll on him physically and all this kind of stuff. I mean, he really did. You talk about suffering for one's art. Fred Gwynne did that when he played Herman Munster. He really, really, oh my God. But I mean, it's worth it, and of course, this is why we're always going to forever remember Fred Gwynne, as this wonderful man and this genius actor and everything else. And we're going to remember him for this role, no matter who played it afterwards. But like I said, you would think, between the 60s and the 80s, you think the makeup would have improved. But when you watch him in this movie, he looks so uncomfortable. And it's like in the makeup back in the 60s, the old Munster show and stuff like that, it's like he had more like range of movement and everything else. And it seemed like the makeup worked better with him back then than it did in this movie. He looks like, poor Fred Gwynne looks like he could barely move. I mean, he's, and I imagine he probably had to really physically put in a lot of work to play that part, because you could tell just by watching the movie itself, you could tell he's really restricted by the bodysuit he's wearing, the makeup he's wearing, and everything else. You could tell he could barely move in this thing. It must have weighed a ton on him and stuff. So, but anyway, so yeah. Also, another reason too, I would say, if you want to introduce people, you trying to get people into horror or trying to get people into the Munsters or whatever, I would definitely say go with Munsters Revenge or Munster Go Home, or just start them off on the show, is because really, like aside from Herman and Grandpa and Marilyn, and I kind of got the feeling, I was like, I kind of got, you kind of watch this, you're like, yeah, this is around the 80s. This is probably when, this is around the time, but obviously they wanted to start giving women characters, more of a proactive, progressive role in movies and television and stuff like that. So they wanted to give her more to do and have more of a, kind of more of a strong, woman character in the show and everything. But I mean, Yvonne De Carlo, I feel so bad for her in this movie because she really gets nothing to do. She's not even in the movie that much. And Casey Martel, who played Eddie, it's like that was such a thankless role for him. I mean, for Butch Patrick, it was good. I mean, it gave him a career, and to this day, everybody always remembers Butch Patrick. Nobody really remembers Casey Martel for playing Eddie, and it's like in the movie, he's barely in it. He's hardly in it at all. They may as well have not even had Eddie in this movie. That's how bad it is. And like I said, Yvonne De Carlo, like, you guys remember, I just reviewed a couple of weeks ago, I just reviewed Munster Go Home. Yvonne De Carlo, she had more of a proactive, progressive role in that movie than she does in this. Pretty much all she does in this movie is her role is reduced to just her sitting in the Munsters' home and just going, oh dear, I hope nothing has happened to Herman and Grandpa. That's pretty much all her role is. And that's just about all her lines of dialogue. So it really is. It's a really thankless role. But I would say the biggest positive you're going to get out of Munster's Revenge is basically to see Al Lewis and Fred Gwynne become like an Abbott and Costello or a Laurel and Hardy. They do a lot of comedic bits and of course the two of them have always had great chemistry together. They always work well together as Herman and Grandpa, and there's a lot of fun dialogue between them, a lot of funny bits and everything else. That's pretty much it. The biggest pro you're going to get out of that movie is Al Lewis and Fred Gwynne. That's about it. Kind of everything else just kind of falls by the wayside. So I would say, yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely don't not watch it. I mean, go ahead and watch it. Watch it for Fred Gwynne and Al Lewis. Watch it for them. But I'm just saying though, like still, if you really want to, get somebody into the Munsters and really, get them started on it, and you are looking for a good kind of gateway movie to get somebody who's not into horror into it. I would definitely say, Munster Go Home is definitely a better choice. But yeah, and then also too, the even though he's there and he does serve a purpose throughout the story, the cousin Femme of the opera character, he does kind of get on your nerves after a while. So take that in consideration. But anyway, sorry, but overall, Monsters Revenge, it's okay, it's harmless. Like I said, the biggest pro you're gonna there's more cons to this movie than pros, but the biggest pro you're gonna get out of it is to watch Al Lewis and Fred Gwynne, be master actors, and it just reinforces why we love these two guys as these characters. We always have and we always will, but just unfortunately, just like Lily and Eddie, they're reduced to almost nothing. So I would, yeah. So yeah, go ahead and check it out for Herman and Grandpa. I keep repeating myself. Sorry about that, but yeah, I would definitely say, watch it for Herman and Grandpa, but just for the rest of them, kind of, But anyway, so that's about it. So yeah, so if anybody took the time to watch this, I thank you for doing it. I appreciate you for doing it. I also hope you enjoyed this this review movie. Speaking of movies, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's like, it's what, like 3 weeks till we get the release of Rob Zombie's Monsters movie, and I'm very much looking forward to it. And I'm very much looking forward to that being my first random review for October. We've already got that slated. However, the only problem is I found out that the Tim Burton Addams Family series probably won't be coming out on Netflix until November, so I need to do a second. So I need to come up with another random for October. But anyway, I'm getting way off the point here. So anyway, that's it. So, if you haven't already, go and subscribe to the BodyBags channel. We have a different reviewer, one for every day of the week. Everybody's doing great stuff. Everybody's doing fun videos to watch. We got more theme weeks coming. Like next week is full moon. We're going to do that. That's going to be fun. And yeah, I'm looking forward. I got to pick the theme this week, so I went with Killer Clowns. So I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be fun too. So that's it, everybody. So take care and have a good night, everybody.